We begin with breaking news out of Washington, D.C. We're now learning National Guard troops will be in the nation's capital tonight, and they will be armed for the first time since Trump's takeover. This comes as President Trump promised to crack down on Democratic-led cities to, quote, clean up crime. All of this is happening, of course, on the heels of one particular story that President Trump just wants to go away, the Epstein files. Democrats on the House Oversight Committee say the Justice Department's release of the first batch of files falls short of full transparency that they and even Trump's own base have been asking for. Joining us now, Democratic Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley of Massachusetts. She is a member of the House Oversight Committee, and you've been vocal speaking out about the rights of the Epstein survivors, and we want to get to that. But first, what do you make of this breaking news that tonight in Washington, D.C., National Guard troops are now going to carry firearms? Do you fear that Boston could be the next city that Donald Trump decides to take over?
Donald Trump has been targeting, first and foremost, I want to say those cities that are run by black mayors, cities that are sanctuary cities, criminalizing our immigrant neighbors, criminalizing the unhoused. And I want to be very clear that this has nothing to do with public safety and everything to do with terror and intimidation. And when you are creating a climate of terror, you are making everyone less safe. We know the things that make communities safer, and there are plenty of mayors that he could learn a thing or two from if he was really interested in that. But this has nothing to do with public safety and everything to do with control.
What kinds of preparations?
One of their strategies of distraction and deflection, from those things that they campaigned on, like lowering costs, which they've not done. Donald Trump allegedly said that he was going to protect women. I don't know how you protect women when you deny survivors of sex trafficking justice.
What kinds of preparations are leaders in Massachusetts, Mayor Wu in Boston, able to make for the possibility that the scenes we're seeing unfold in the nation's capital are coming to you?
Well, I won't be. I'm not going to speak to that on here. I'll just say that we're always preparing and planning contingency plans for under this hostile administration that is actively in the midst of a hostile government takeover. So we always have to be at the ready.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there. If you want to finish your thought.
No, I just said we always have to be on the ready.
Fair enough. I wanted to ask you about the idea that this is a distraction. I know it's obviously a distraction for Donald Trump, who wants to keep the attention away from his shortcomings and his failures. But the people in D.C. tonight are going to have armed guards, armed National Guard members on their streets. They're going to wake up tomorrow morning, either try to get to work with a sense of fear if they have to go through a checkpoint or having an interaction with an armed soldier on their street. Probably not going to feel like a political distraction for them. It's their reality in the morning. What do you make of that reality that has now befallen this nation's capital?
Well, of course, it's a frightening reality. And as I've said, it's reminiscent of New York under Mayor Giuliani with stop and frisk policies. Even my own city of Boston with stop and frisk in the wake of the Charles Stewart murder. My staff live and work in D.C. Obviously, as a member of Congress, I spend my time in D.C. My godchildren live in D.C. They are young black boys. And I fear for them in this targeting, in this surveillance, in this militarized state, in this federal takeover. Again, none of it is being done in the name of public safety, truly. It has everything to do with control and intimidation, and it's one more action in this extremist march towards authoritarianism. But again, it is a strategic distraction and deflection from those things that Donald Trump campaigned on and said that he cared about and would do something about, and that includes the Epstein files. And I'm grateful to Congresswoman Summer Lee, our ranking member on the federal law enforcement subcommittee and oversight, who developed a strategy in the midst of this hearing on child trafficking to call out their hypocrisy that forced a subpoena to the DOJ. But they are not in compliance. They have violated that binding congressional subpoena by sending us a batch of files instead of the complete Epstein files, unredacted, except for the names of the 20+ victims who came forward. And that's who I do not want to get lost in this. As a survivor myself, myself of childhood sexual abuse and campus sexual assault, who's done the work of survivors justice for a long time, I need for people to not think of the survivors in some abstract way. These are survivors who are adults now, who were children, many of them in middle school and high school, who were aspiring artists and models. They've been robbed of their dreams. They've had their bodies violated. They've had their rights violated. And as I'm in regular communication with many of the victims, the survivors, and their legal counsel, I know that what they define this as is an institutional betrayal. And it just continues to go on.
Congresswoman, you and 15 of your Democratic colleagues have called for a congressional hearing so that the victims, the survivors, can share their stories and talk about what happened with, in their experience with the Epstein sex trafficking ring. Do you think that this will happen? Do you think there will be a congressional hearing?
Well, I'm leading that fight. I'm grateful for my colleagues who joined me in demanding a hearing in the Committee on Oversight and Reform. The great Elijah Cummings reminds us that the role of the Committee on Oversight and Reform is to be an efficient and effective pursuit of the truth. And we cannot have the truth unless we have a comprehensive lay of the land of how far the reach goes, how deep the harm went. And you need to center the survivors and hear their stories along with the Epstein files completely unredacted in order to do that. We need to understand who else could be involved, who else were enablers in this predator Ponzi scheme that is protecting the powerful and the privileged. And that is what the Republicans are doing, but that's what they've always done. They are shielding and protecting predators. They did it with Jim Jordan. They did it with Matt Gaetz. They've done it with Donald Trump. And they're doing it now with Epstein and Maxwell. Enough is enough. Justice delayed is justice denied. These survivors deserve so much more. And this is not only about the Epstein survivors. This is about our survivor community. They deserve transparency, they deserve justice, and they deserve healing, and they need to be heard. And I will continue to demand a hearing in the Committee on Oversight and Reform and to fight for it until it happens.
So we know that you and your colleagues, you've only received a tiny fraction of the documents that you were hoping for. But have you started to learn anything? Is there something in the files you've received that has surprised you, changed the way you see this case, or, added a name to the list of folks, lawmakers might want to subpoena in the future?
The committee staff and my personal staff continue to comb through these some 33,000 pages of documents. Again, this batch, which applies in the face of the congressional subpoena, which they have violated by just sending these batches. But it seems that maybe 1,000 pages or a little less than that, there's new information, which is really about flight plans, if you will. So there's new information about some flights that took place. And that could be illuminating about this, what we've heard about many times before, this Lolita Express, if you will. But the point is, the information should not be cherry picked. And the more that they are cherry picking what they turn over to the Committee on Oversight and Reform in response to this binding congressional subpoena, which they've already violated, just seems to be one more step in an effort to cover up and to protect the powerful, to shield these predators, and to deny the victims, the survivors, the justice, transparency, and accountability that they are owed.
Congresswoman, how quickly do you think the public will see the 1,000 pages of new information, the new flight logs, so that can be in the public sphere for full transparency?
Well, I wouldn't, conjecture a timeline around that. I mean, we were supposed to have all of the files unredacted except for the names of the victims by the 19th. We did not get that. We received this batch on Friday. So I don't have a sight line into when we will have everything that we need, but certainly it is within our right to share that information, to make it available to the public, and we will, because it is in keeping with what the majority of the people in this country have asked Congress to do, and in fact what Donald Trump campaigned on. But he is a fascist, he is a fraud, and he is a fool. This is someone who has children, who has daughters himself, These victims deserve justice. I mean, their dignity has been violated. Their bodies have been violated. Their dreams have been violated. Their rights have been violated. They have had to spend the lion's share of their adult lives fighting for justice. And let's not forget one of those victims, Virginia Giuffre, who took her life after decades fighting for justice. And I'm haunted by her words saying that she was a baby surrounded by adults who could do whatever they wanted to her. And there were adults all around her. They were turning a blind eye, from butlers and maids and drivers and doctors and psychologists and hairstylists. We need to know who was a part of this systemic modern day slavery, child sex trafficking, who was involved, and they need to be held accountable.
Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley, it is good to see you. Thank you for joining us tonight. And I know that this matters to you, so we want to show resources for sexual assault survivors. Here are some numbers that you at home can call to get help if you or someone you know needs it.